Hello everyone, Brad is here. I hope you're all doing good. I'm not doing too bad myself, thanks for asking. I've got a decent game here on bootleg, running with the AK Silence, and like always, the specialist kill streaks. Anyway, let's talk some pussy with Road to Whore episode 11. Before we get into it, I have a quick tip I want to share with you on how to impress a new girl in your life. And if you know someone you like but you never know the right things to say to her, text her these exact words. Babe, just a quick text to let you know how beautiful you are, and that I'm glad I found you, because you deserve to be treated like a princess. Okay, so I know that's the cheesiest thing ever, but seriously now, someone texts that to a girl in their life, and I guarantee the response is rather going to start with a "aww," and then that means you are in there. But if it starts with a "what the fuck," then she is probably a butch lesbian anyway. Right, everybody meet Chloe, who I met when I was 19. I met her through a friend of mine, pretty much like the rest of the girls I've ever met really. It was different with Chloe though. What I mean by this is I wasn't physically attracted to her, which is absolutely, it's just unheard of when it comes to me basically. She was just a really polite and nice girl to talk to. We became close friends fairly quickly. We never really texted each other or anything like that because she had a boyfriend, and we didn't want it to go anywhere else, so we just stayed to when we bumped into each other on the street. We'd just have a chat, and we grew quite close because of that. Every now and again I would bump into her down the shops and we would just chat for 10-15 minutes. It takes a lot for me to allow a girl into my personal life, and what I mean by this is I have lots of boy mates, but girls are just fuckers. That's all I do with girls, I just fuck them. But with Chloe it was different. I was really accepting of her, and she became a friend, my first ever proper female friend, on a friendly level, because she knew exactly what I had been through with Kerry in episode 9. She understood because basically she was going through a similar thing with her boyfriend as well, but it was slightly different. He was actually beating her up. And it didn't take long for Chloe to start turning up at my mum and dad's house crying after he had hit her, and this started getting a regular sort of visit. Every now and again they'd have a fallout and she would always come to my house. And this particular night she actually phoned me and asked if I could go and pick her up. And she was crying over the phone, and I could hear her boyfriend shouting at her in the background. I couldn't figure out what he was saying, but I knew he was raising his voice, and I didn't really think things through, to be honest. I just jumped in the car like a fucking boss and drove to her flat. And that's it's a flat that she shared with a boyfriend. Obviously she paid for it all. He didn't have a job. And I didn't actually think it would kick off with me being there, but I was just expecting Chloe to get in the car and we would be on our way. But that didn't happen. Chloe came out the door and walked towards the car, and her boyfriend followed her, who obviously I had never met before and I had no idea what he looked like. He was shouting at her, and I couldn't again hear or understand anything he was saying, but I did notice he had this beer bottle in his hand, or some sort of bottle. And first of all I shat myself and I just stayed sat in the car whilst they shouted at each other. But then he pushed her to the ground, and I'm not gonna lie, I can't fight very well and I'm not very tough, but when my adrenaline kicks in I could take out Chuck Norris with one finger. So and I don't mean up the bum. So I jumped out the car, and not to actually start a fight, but more to try and defuse the situation. But I only made it worse. He threw his beer bottle at my car and cracked my window, and I just went smack down on his ass. And I don't mean with my mushroom tip. We just had a scrap on the floor. It wasn't really a fight, but I was just basically trying to stop him from hitting me. And I remember pushing him over, and he fell over. So myself and Chloe just jumped in the car and we left. Chloe, just to describe her, she had I think it was dark brown hair, and she was pretty, but I just never looked at her in that way. She was quite tall and thin, but not too thin, but not too chubby. Probably the perfect figure, actually, looking back at it now. But anyway, she was quite close to my mum, in the sense of every time she would come round and cry, my mum was always there to comfort her. And she was inside talking to my mum, and I was outside putting a bin bag over my car window, obviously with the help of my dad. And anyway, the night got later, and my mum suggested that Chloe stayed over, so I was actually in the sleeping bag on the floor, and she was in my bed, and we just stayed up for a good few hours watching TV, and that's when it happened. I didn't really expect it, but she just, said something really nice to me, like, I'm a nice lad, and she really appreciates what I did and coming together, and there needs to be more people like me on this planet. And I was feeling pretty cocky right back then after she said that. But that's when I was laughing and I was just watching TV, and the next minute she just started kissing me, and it was weird because it felt so right. So I kissed back, and that's when she just grabbed my hand and wrapped it around her, for a cuddle type of thing. And we were cuddling, and even at this point, I wasn't even thinking about getting laid. When usually, if I start kissing a girl, I'm thinking about nailing it, and I wasn't. And I just thought it was a kiss, but she took it further by grabbing my hand and putting it on her breast, which I must admit, they were an absolute handful. They're so deceiving. You know when tits look so small, but you actually get them out and it's like, fuck me, where did they come from? They were them type of tits. And my mushroom tip got erectified and some good tipping went down. I started to take the lead, and she was actually in my shorts and t-shirt because obviously I gave her some clothes to sleep in, which were actually miles too big for her. It was weird, we were kissing 1 minute and I went to pull down her shorts, but they wasn't there. And I just looked at her like, what the fuck, did you remove them? And she just looked at me in the eyes, grabbed my hand and put it on her pussy. And seriously now, I have never felt anything so soft in my life. It was unreal. It was just the nicest touching vagina ever. But oh my days, how wet she was. You could wring her vagina out and fill a bathtub with it. My hands were slipping all over the place. And then you get hit with that pussy smell. And we had sex, but it was different to any other girl, because it was lust. And what I mean by this is, instead of all the licky and take your time sort of build up, it was just mushroom tip, straight in and plow. And it was her moaning that got to me. It sounded so soft and gentle, but like she really meant it for once. And it was just, it really got me going into this decent motion. And she was whispering down my ear saying she was going to come, but in that really sexy voice, like you hear in porn. And I just lost it and plowed her like a train, and I exploded absolutely everywhere. I pulled out pretty much straight after that and lay there trying to catch my breath, and she went back down on me, and I was like, oh my god, she's giving my mushroom tip mouth to mouth, and I am absolutely fucked, which almost made me collapse. And amazingly, I started to get hard again, and I was like, fuck me, I'm going to go for the second time. And this time I made sure she had enough, and I just absolutely drilled her so hard and deep she wasn't coming back for more, trust me. And I didn't actually finish off this time. I stopped after she was in doggy style, sort of losing her balance because her legs were giving way, and we just lay in bed cuddling, watching TV. And obviously I wasn't in a sleeping bag at this stage, we were both in the same bed. When I noticed she fell asleep, so I quickly realised what had just happened, and I was like, oh shit, she was a friend of mine, I didn't really want that to happen. So I slipped out the bag, I slipped out the bed and got back into the sleeping bag on the floor. I probably would have liked to have started a relationship with her, but the next day, stupidly, she went back to her boyfriend, and after that she was always off with me. She never... it was never the same. I don't know whether she regretted sleeping with me, or if it was the fact that she knows I think she's silly for going back to her boyfriend. But it was strange because I'd bump into her at the shops, and she would sometimes just put her head down and just walk straight past me, and other times just say hiya and carry on walking. It was always awkward, and it was a shame because she was a good friend. I have no idea where she's up to these days or who she's dating. I hope she's moved on from him, because he was he's scum of the earth basically. So my parents used to always actually ask, have I ever spoke to her? And I'm always like, I've not heard from her. And they always asked what happened that night, because my dad said he heard noises, but I never got into it. I got my my car fixed. I think the window cost around £80, which is about $90, is it, or $70, something like that. Anyway, after that I moved on to the next girl, which you'll find out in Road to Heart episode 12. You guys take it easy, keep submitting your would you rathers and your subscriber picks, and more importantly for now, your montages. I'm getting a lot through and it's looking really good. I think you guys are going to be really pleased with it. I'm trying to actually work on that final push to try and expose the channel a little more, but I'm going to need the help from you guys to do that. But I'm that type of person who I don't like to ask you guys for anything except for just watch my video. I don't care if you don't like it or if you don't favourite it, just watch it. But there's one thing that I'm thinking of doing, but it's a bit twitchy whether I should or not. Anyway, you guys take it easy, and I will catch up with you guys later. Goodbye for now. Mwah.